What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Runs on Diesel. And today we're going to be talking about the Central Division. And we're going to kick it right off with the Chicago Bulls here. We all know about Wendell Carter Jr. that they got from Duke, Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, and Otto Porter. We all know about them. They did have a couple of additions, including what they got in the draft and who they picked up in the offseason. Tomas Satoransky and Thaddeus Young, who I thought was a great pickup. Thaddeus Young is not going to wow you with big numbers, but he's consistent. He knows his role, and I think he's a great pickup for the Chicago Bulls team. They did lose Robin Lopez in the process as well. Now he's with the Milwaukee Bucks. Of course, he stays in the division, and now he's with his brother, Brook Lopez, in Milwaukee. So last year, the Bulls were 22-60. I do have them trending upward this season. I do believe they will go 36-46 this year. They're going to be just out of the playoff picture. I think they will be between the 9th and the 9th to the 11th seed, around there. I don't think they have enough to make the playoffs. I think they need one more piece, and they could pick up that piece before the trade deadline coming up in February this season. But I do think that they need one more piece for them to get over the hump and to make the playoffs, because they haven't made the playoffs since the Derrick Rose days when Tom Thibodeau was the coach. So that's what I have here. Prediction 36-46 for the Chicago Bulls. Up next is the Cleveland Cavaliers. We know that they're not going to go nowhere this season. They're 19-63 last year. I have them losing more games this year, even though they got some talent in the draft. Darius Garland out of Vanderbilt. They got Dylan Windler out of Belmont, and Kevin Porter Jr. out of USC. Kevin Porter Jr. I'm not sold on yet. Dylan Wilder, I have confidence in. He averaged over 20 points a game, 10 rebounds in his last season in Belmont, shot over 38% from downtown in pretty much his entire, he started shooting better later on in his Belmont career there in college. But as of last season, he was over 40% from downtown. He shot great, was a rebounder, could score in a number of ways. And then Garland, I think, is a rare talent. I think he has big potential upside coming up. Not just this year in his rookie year, but I think he could be a very solid player, could get you 15 to 18 points any given night. And I believe he'll be like that this season for the Cleveland Cavaliers, along with Sexton. We know they got the new coach, John Beilein, who was coaching at Michigan last year. I think he's going to be a good coach. He's going to get off to a slow start because Cleveland just doesn't have the talent right now in order to even come close to being in the playoffs. But who knows? They could surprise us, like the Sacramento Kings did last year. So we'll see what happens here. But they did lose J.R. Smith. They did lose Cameron Payne as well. So, but like I said, don't put all your eggs in one basket here and think Cleveland's going to do better than you think they're going to do. Obviously, we know they're going to stink. They're going to be at the bottom of the division, the bottom of the conference. They're probably going to be a lottery pick next year, top 5 lottery pick next year. So I have them going 15-67 this upcoming season. So 15-67. So keep that in mind. Detroit Pistons, they got Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin, Reggie Jackson. They did acquire Derrick Rose, Markieff Morris, and Tony Snell. I like all 3 of those acquisitions. They did lose Ish Smith, John Lure, and Wayne Ellington, the shooter out of North Carolina, who's been in the league for 10 plus years and has been a great shooter for most of his career. Derrick Rose, he's starting to become his old self again. We all know what we saw last year in that 50-point performance when he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves. We're starting to see more and more glimpses of himself. And now that I believe he's going to be a starter on this team, him and I believe Reggie Jackson are going to be the starters for this team. I do believe that Derrick Rose is going to start putting up better numbers this year. He's going to be a better player than he was last year, and he looks better and better, and he's starting to look more like his old self, with the exception of all those knee injuries he's had late, in his career. He's starting to look more and more like his old self. That explosiveness is there. He can still get up and go yak on somebody. He doesn't do it as much as he used to in his younger days, but you could see that he's becoming more and more himself, his old self again. I like Markieff Morris. The Morris brothers have always been good. Markieff Morris I think, is not as good as his brother Marcus Morris, but Markieff Morris knows his role, gets points, can shoot the mid-range shot, can post up on small defenders in the post, can shoot the three ball. And then Tony Snell is one of those guys who's a 3-and-D kind of guy, can shoot the three ball when he is consistently good at shooting the three ball, but is a very good perimeter defender. So I like the three pickups there. They did get a couple of good draft picks here. Some of them were from, I will not be able to pronounce the names, so I'm not even going to try to. They got a couple of foreign players from Guinea and from Lithuania. They did get a couple players from college out of Nebraska and Tennessee, and Isaiah Roby and Jordan Bone. So other than that, they went 41-41 last year. I do not have them making the playoffs this year. I have them at 38-44. I believe that they could sneak into that 7th and 8th seed spot. I believe that between the 6th and the 8th seed, those are up for grabs because some of the teams that I have in the predictions I have right now, I have these. I'll show you who my 1 to 8 seeds are in the East later in a later episode, but I have the Pistons not making the playoffs. I still think that they're one player away. Maybe Derrick Rose is that player they need to get over the hump and to possibly be not just an 8 seed, but maybe a 6 seed, a 5 or a 6 seed, try and get up there. But like I said, you only have to be a 500 ball club to make the playoffs in the East. And Detroit, I believe, is a 500 ball club. I have them. I lowered their expectations. I hope I'm wrong about Detroit, but 38-44 is my prediction for the Detroit Pistons. Next is the Indiana Pacers, who went 48-34 last year. A big surprise after Oladipo went out. They won more than 20 games out of the last 30, I believe, to end the season after Oladipo got hurt. They looked great. I think they went 22-10 in their last 32 games to end the regular season. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I believe I'm correct on that. But they kind of shocked a lot of people. You got Sabonis. Obviously, Oladipo is going to be back from that horrific leg injury. Hopefully, he's ready at the beginning of the season. I believe he is. But news will tell in the future here if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. You got TJ Leaf, a player out of UCLA, McDermott out of, I think it was Creighton. He played for Creighton, scored over 2,500 points in his Creighton career in college. He has not been able to translate well into the NBA well. His game is not translated well. Great shooter, but in terms of his post-up game, his length, his athleticism, he's not as athletic, and he's been very vulnerable in those areas, but he's a great shooter. I love Doug McDermott as a shooter. And then there's obviously Miles Turner, who had a great year last year. They only had one draft pick, a Georgian, Goga, I'm going to botch the last name here, Bitstida. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but they got a Georgian. It was their only draft pick. It was the 18th pick in the draft. They did add Malcolm Brogdon, T.J. Warren, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and T.J. McConnell, the feisty defender who has a good mid-range game. But Malcolm Brogdon's the big name that they picked up from Milwaukee, and I believe this team just got that much better. I do have them in the win. Like I said, they went 48-34 last year. This year, I believe they're going to go 44-38. They're not going to be a top 4 seed or a top any of the top 5 seeds in the East. They will probably be a 6th or 7th seed in the East, depending on how well they play this season. Now that Oladipo's back, they're going to be better. And now that they got Malcolm Brogdon and all these other acquisitions, they did lose Bogdanovich, who I really wish they didn't lose because he was so consistent. He was so great 3-point shooter, a decent rebounder for them. They did lose Thaddeus Young, Darren Collison, Tyreek Evans, Corey Joseph, and Wesley Matthews. I wish they didn't lose a couple of those players, especially Wesley Matthews and Thaddeus Young and Bogdanovich. Those three guys I think are going to hit home. That's why I have because they lost some big players on their team. Now I have them down, like I said, 44 and 38 is where I have the Pacers this year. They will make the playoffs. I believe they will make the playoffs, but they're going to be a 6, 7, or an 8 seed probably in the upcoming playoffs, in this upcoming playoff season towards the end of the year, obviously. And then obviously there's the obvious team in the Central Division. We all know that they're going to be I believe they could be the number 1 overall seed in the East and the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs this upcoming season, if health-wise they stay healthy all season long, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks. They went 60-22 last year. They still got Ilyasova, Brook Lopez, Eric Bledsoe, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, Pat Connaughton, George Hill, and Chris Middleton. And, they only have 1 draft pick. They picked Dante DaVincio out of Villanova. They did add Robin Lopez, so now that adds even more length to this team. Wesley Matthews now on this team, a great perimeter defender, can shoot the 3 ball. Kyle Korver, one of the best all-time 3-point shooters the game's ever seen. He's on this team now. They acquired him. And Dragan Bender out of I believe it was the Phoenix Suns he was on, and they just picked him up as well. They did lose Malcolm Brogdon. They did lose Tony Snell, and they did lose Nikola Mirotic. So they did lose some players, but I like who they picked up as well. So I have them at 60-22. I think they're still going to win 60 games this year. And it's all depending on the health of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Hopefully he stays healthy all season long. And if their key pieces stay healthy all season long, they're going to win 60 games again this year. They'll be the number 1 overall seed going into the playoffs next year. But that is all I have for you guys here in the Central Division. Stay tuned for the next episode, which is going to be on the Southeast Division with the Hawks, the Hornets, the Heat. In my opinion, probably one of the weakest divisions in the NBA. There's not a lot of good teams in this Southeast Division, but stay tuned for that next episode. Thank you guys so much for your time. Please comment, please subscribe, please give it a thumbs up. Comment on what you guys think of my predictions in the Central Division here with these 5 NBA teams here. But thank you, like I said, thank you guys so much for your time, and I will see you guys in the next one. Deuces.